Hello, everyone. We are in your science book on page 32, and we're going to read until page 34. Suppose that you are walking along the foot of a cliff one day and you find some large animal bones lying on the ground. You pick up a bone and study it carefully. It is brown and hard as a rock. Several questions might come to your mind as you think about these bones. What kind of animal did they belong to? How did they become so hard and stony? What happened to the animal? How long have the bones been there? What can they tell you about life on the earth? These are some of the same questions that scientists seek to answer when they study fossils. Fossil formation. A fossil is any part or trace of a living organism that is naturally preserved after it dies. Most fossils are found in sedimentary rock. These types of fossils can only form when organisms or living things are buried quickly beneath sediment. The softest parts of an organism usually decompose or rot away first. The harder parts are sometimes preserved as fossils. If not buried quickly, the organism would decompose completely. The Bible tells us that in the days of Noah, God judged the earth with a great flood. The waters of the flood caused great erosion. Huge amounts of sediment formed in a short time. It buried all the land and flying creatures that were not on the ark, as well as many sea creatures. Trees and other plants were also buried. The fossils that we see today are clear evidence of this worldwide flood. Fossils preserved in sediment. Many fossils are preserved parts of an animal or a plant. These fossils are usually the hardest part of an animal, such as its bones, teeth, claws, shells, or tusks. Sometimes, as an animal's bone or the wood of a tree decayed, it was slowly replaced by minerals. The minerals hardened over time and formed rock. Such fossils are called petrified fossils. Other fossils also show how an organism used to look. Even though the organism has decomposed, this happens when an organism decomposed after the fine sediment covering it hardened to rock. An empty space was left in the rock. This imprint of the organism in the rock is called a mold. If fine sediment filled in the empty space of the mold, a cast formed. A cast is a copy of the shape of the organism. Sometimes a plant or animal decayed under the weight of sediment. Parts of the plant or animal turned to carbon, forming a dark image of itself in the rock. This kind of fossil is called a carbon film. Fossils are not always part of a plant or animal itself. Trace fossils formed from something that an organism left behind, such as a footprint, a hole where an animal lived, or an animal's droppings. Trace fossils sometimes give scientists clues about how an organism lived. For example, fossilized footprints might show whether an animal walked upright, on 2 feet, or walked on all 4 feet. Fossils of droppings might reveal to scientists what an animal ate. Fossils preserved in other materials. Not all plant and animal fossils are preserved in sediment. Sometimes plants or animals have been found preserved in amber. Amber is sap from a plant buried during the flood that has hardened into a yellow gem-like substance. Insects and other small animals are often fossilized in this way. Fossils have also been found frozen in ice and permafrost. Permafrost is permanently frozen soil. In the far north, Arctic animals have been found almost fully preserved. The woolly mammoth was a large, hairy animal that looked like an elephant. Woolly mammoths died many years ago. Within the last 50 years, however, scientists have dug mammoth fossils complete with hair out of the frozen soil. Tar can also preserve fossils. In some places, thick crude oil oozes out of the earth and forms tar pits. Living things get trapped in the sticky tar and die. The tar then preserves them. Fossils of plants, insects, birds, and mammals have all been recovered from the Rancho La Brea tar pits in California. These tar pits even contain many fossils of animals, such as the ground sloth, the ancient bison, and the saber-toothed cat. Fantastic facts. In 1997, a reindeer herder in Siberia noticed a tusk sticking out of the snowy tundra. Scientists explored the area and guessed that a mammoth's body was buried in the ice. They named the mammoth Jarkov after the man who found it. In 1999, a helicopter airlifted the huge block of ice containing Jarkov to a cave. Scientists thawed the ice slowly with hair dryers to avoid damaging the mammoth. Although the mammoth's body was not as complete as they had hoped, it provided new information about the animal. Now, here's your quick check. I want you to think about these questions and be prepared to answer them in class tomorrow. Number 1, how did fossils found in sedimentary rock form? 2, what kind of fossil formed when sediment filled in the space in a rock after the organism decomposed? 3, what materials other than sediment have preserved plants and animals as fossils?